Good advertising does not circulate information. It penetrates the public mind with desires and beliefs. Hello, listeners, and welcome to season 2 of Mycast, official podcast, and we've titled this season The New Norm. I'm Nitpreet.
And I'm Piyush. The guest we have today has a varied experience in advertising, marketing, media, and research for close to 15 years. He's worked with companies like Ogilvy, Discovery Networks, GSK Consumer Healthcare, and Grey Worldwide. He's currently with McCann World Group as Vice President for Strategic Planning and works across FMCG and travel clients. He's also passionate about teaching and is part of courses focusing on cultural strategy at MICA. Welcome, Vikram sir. We're really excited to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with both of you.
Thank you, sir. So, in this episode, sir, we would like to discuss with you about advertising, the cultural shifts, whether brands need to shift their focus, and the changes in the work culture that we can expect to see. So, sir, you know that the lockdown has altered our choices on consumption, and it's become really crucial for the advertisers and marketers to understand the human behavior. And when we are talking with you, sir, and not talking about human behavior, that just cannot happen. So, what do you think? What is the need of the hour for the advertisers and the marketers, and how important is it for them to understand the culture?
So I think, of course, it's important to understand the cultural context of your consumers at any given point of time, and it's increasingly becoming more important for brands and for marketeers. But when something as large as a pandemic comes and affects the macro ecosystem, it becomes even more important for marketers to step back and to to kind of understand how basic behavioral patterns are changing, but more than that, also how people's attitudes towards certain categories, people's value systems are changing, how people are changing at slightly more fundamental level. So it's no longer about the way people are engaging with categories as such, but it's also about the way people are engaging with their lives, and that has fundamentally changed. So I think marketeers need to look at the bigger picture and study it in a certain kind of detail that will allow them to pick up the signs and allow them to connect the dots, and that will eventually have implications for their brands. But it's a good time to perhaps take a step back and look at things from a slightly larger perspective.
And also, there's a lot of uncertainty around everything right now. So it has sort of left us with a lot of unanswered questions. And one of the concern is what will be the future of in-house advertising? So what according to you, like how will advertising which happens in-house, how will that be shaped?
So most clients are kind of I feel they are following a slight wait and watch kind of a process right now when it comes to advertising. They're still trying to figure out, should we invest in advertising, is this the right time to have conversations with our customers. But the reality is, and in fact enough research has been done on this and has shown that during times of great crisis and any times that humanity has been impacted, with something as large as this pandemic, uh, that is really the time for brands to add a lot of meaning to the lives of their consumers. That is actually an opportunity for brands to build trust, to build confidence, and to show to consumers that we are with you, we are by your sides, and we are also partners in your living, and we look at you as human beings. It's a great time for brands build a certain sense of empathy with what is going on in the lives of their consumers, to not just look at them as consumers that interact with their products, but also as people who have fallen in love with their brands and who have a relationship, a powerful relationship and a bond with their brands. And in fact, brands have understood this. They have tried to leverage this by a doing work that has been around building empathy and trust, being topical to what the need of the hour is. But also, I think brands have tried to perhaps connect back with their larger purpose during this time. So I don't think advertising has really halted, but I think the nature of advertising has changed. And of course, that has had an implication when it comes to both in house creative shops and also the way clients have been engaging with their usual advertising partners. I think they may still be doing the same volume of work, but I think for a few months, a lot of clients, and especially large clients, have perhaps stopped focusing so much on the hard selling, but instead have started focusing a little bit on matters of trust and empathy, and maybe their larger purpose. And I think gradually they will pick up the momentum and they will get back to their typical patterns of more consumption based advertising. But I think it may take a little bit more time.
Okay, so sir, you were talking about advertising, and we've also seen that there has been a considerable drop in the advertising spent by the brands. So, as confinement measures were introduced around the world, out of home and cinema advertising has also shrank almost instantly. So, what according to you is the future of advertising spends in particular?
I think it's very simplistic to look at this with one size that fits all, and with one lens that is applicable across industries. I'd like to break this up and kind of force us to consider the varied nuances of different industries and how they have been impacted by the nature of this pandemic. So, for example, there are certain industries where they have actually seen an increase in consumption and demand, and these are industries that are in packaged food and, of course, healthcare, household care, media, and entertainment to a large extent. So, these are categories where I would say that they've seen a sort of increased push in demand, and as a result of that, they have possibly realigned their of course they've realigned their supply chain, but they've also worked on building advertising that is catering to the love that their brands are getting. At the same time, there are certain categories related to food and maybe essential services that have remained fairly consistent. But of course, we do know that there are certain industries and sectors that have been very, very badly impacted by the pandemic. Most notably, of course, travel and tourism, luxury, and to a certain extent, traditional retail are some categories where I feel their impact has been so severe that they might not be in the best position to advertise right now or focus on spending on their marketing efforts. But at the same time, I feel that, and just to add to your point, Nitpreet, I feel like a lot of brands have realized that while this may not be the best time to do traditional mainline television advertising, and also because that has logistical constraints right now in terms of how do we shoot during a lockdown, they've also realized that this is a great opportunity to take advantage of a captive audience that is sitting at home and is spending a large amount of time on digital interfaces, on social media, and on OTT media consumption. And those perhaps have become newer sources of advertising. So I would say that, at least given the fact that we are all currently still living in a lockdown, and it is going to be a time before we truly unlock, there has been a shift in the media mix, and what you would call also traditionally out of home channels, which would include classically things like outdoors, your billboards, perhaps anything experiential that you might be doing, brand activations, to a certain extent even radio, which is consumed a lot out of home. I would feel a lot of these have perhaps reduced in focus and in home consumption, and not just in TV, but also in things that have a quicker, faster, and sometimes a more cost efficient turnaround time, like digital and social media assets, has definitely increased.
Yeah, and also, sir, not only from the side of clients and companies, even consumers are now focusing more on essential items and essential components. So, what kind of cultural shift do you see either in the long term or in the short term in terms of buying behavior or purchase behavior or how we interact with brands?
So I think consumption is undergoing a fundamental macro shift, and I think it's going to require a little bit of time and effort to really truly decode it, because while some people believe that there has been a sense of caution that has come into our consumption, and a lot of people are now spending very, very prudently and focusing only on essentials, perhaps cutting down on luxuries, cutting down on things that might be discretionary. But there is also another school of thought that says that this pandemic has also perhaps reminded everybody of the non-permanence of their lives, and the fact that it's an opportunity to live and to live wholeheartedly. And one might as well, if one has the means, really live it up and actually spend on things that one truly desires, rather than saving up to do that spend when there is the right time. So, honestly, if you ask me, I would say that this is, of course, a function purely, of course, of what your economic status is. And traditionally, of course, we know that culturally, Indians have always been savers and not spenders. We do have a mentality to save for a rainy day, and there couldn't have been a bigger, grander rainy day. Traditional wisdom tells us that culturally we will start perhaps saving more, being more discretionary with our spends. But I feel that there is an emerging new narrative which is going to be on people realizing the fact that anything could come and disrupt your life forever. And it might be in your interest to truly live in the moment and spend and enjoy it as much as you can.
That's a very interesting line of approach. So I'm sorry, sir. I'd like to take you back to the digital part when you mentioned about digital advertising. So we have seen that in the past couple of months, brands are prioritizing digital advertising more than the traditional mediums. And you also mentioned some recent emerging trends and changes in the campaigns or the approach towards marketing. And this just reminds me that we all saw Karan Johar on his 48th birthday dyeing his hair using Godrej creme color. So, can we say is that the new way we can expect the entire marketing and advertising scenario to be? Because to me personally, he was someone who would always symbolize things like luxury and style and fashion, and then advertising for something, if I may use the word, as massy as a Godrej 30 or 40 rupees dye. So, it was a bit of a culture shock for me as well. So, can we see more such things happening in the advertising world?
I mean, it's an interesting point you've raised, Nitpreet, and I think it's definitely a sort of a golden age for influencer marketing. And I think this pandemic and the lockdown has actually also, one has to remember, has also been a lockdown for some of our most major and minor celebrities across varied fields. And I think uh, this is something that marketeers have very smartly realized and recognized. And in fact, you've given one example, but you'll find a lot of examples where our celebrities across domains as varied as music and food and fashion and style, and of course the film industry, are being leveraged in varied ways by brands. Of course, TikTok is a great example of a platform that has leveraged a lot of sort of celebrity influencers and endorsers. But I've also noticed a fair bit of activity on other social media channels. And I think this is a very smart move. It's a win win for influencers who are possibly out of work right now, because the nature of their industry requires them to be physically outside and possibly be shooting in an outdoor location, which is currently not feasible. And at the same time, it gives an opportunity for a brand to perhaps leverage these resources which were otherwise may not have been possible. So I think it's a great marketing strategic tool. Specifically with the example you mentioned, I thought that was fairly well done. In fact, you're right. There is a certain cultural codification for what somebody like Karan Johar stands for. But the fact of the matter is that more than anything else, consumers are also looking for how seamlessly products and brands can be integrated into the lives of their influencers, and how natural the story seems. And I thought that just the way it was executed, and the fact that he had been trying on a new look with gray and white hair before that, and the fact that he made the application and the usage seemed very casual and non-push and forcing on the selling. I think that kind of gave it an interesting touch. So I thought it was kind of conceptualized cleverly and executed well.
Absolutely. Even I loved that advertisement, and I think there was a lot of appreciation. It was received well by the consumers. Another really shocking thing that came into papers during this lockdown phase was from beer to clothing. This I very distinctly remember. This was the title of the newspaper article that Budweiser has diversified into fashion apparel to beat the pandemic blues. What is the rationale behind this? Is it the right time to take such decisions, even when the fashion industry has been hit severely as well?
One has to also, Nitpreet, understand how marketing for alcohol works. And specifically in a country like India, we know that typically alcohol cannot be advertised on the basis of what you're really selling. And you have to, invoke a surrogate. And that is really the kind of advertising that is legally allowed by alcohol companies. And in fact, across the years, we've seen some fairly obvious and some fairly interesting surrogates that alcohol companies have used. The most common and usual ones are music CDs. Some people get into merchandise and some people get into bottled water, which was a classic thing that Kingfisher had done. And sometimes
Stickers and emojis that Absolute did.
yes, exactly. And a lot of people dabble in spaces which are kind of surrogates, like Blenders Pride has done a fashion tour. Absolute, of course, does a lot of things with art and installation. Trying to build your brand using another product category is not something that's new. Brands have dabbled in it. In fact, one could argue and say that Kingfisher Airlines was also a surrogate. In fact, it's like every time somebody bought a ticket to Kingfisher Airlines, they were reminded of Kingfisher as a brand. So it was a giant expensive surrogate for the beer. The calendar, Kingfisher calendar, was a surrogate for the beer. This has happened in the past, but it's interesting that now there seems to be a synergy between alcohol and fashion to some extent, or I would say beverage brands actually getting into lifestyle. I would call it more of a lifestyle move. And this is not the first time. In fact, if you look at it, brands like Coke and Pepsi have, in fact, dabbled with fashion. They have done collaborations with sporting brands. I think Coke or Puma, one of them has actually come out with their shoe line. And very recently, in fact, Pepsi collaborated with an Indian sort of a streetwear indie designer duo called Human and came up with a limited edition collection that was also shown at the Lakme Fashion Week. So this has happened before. It's interesting to give your brand, especially a brand that wants to be young and edgy, cool and fashionable, and be seen as not just about alcohol but also about maybe lifestyle. I think fashion is a sort of a logical extension. I'm not sure why Budweiser has gotten into this during the lockdown, but I suspect it could also be just to create a certain buzz, a certain excitement around the band. Because you mentioned fashion being hit, but I'm sure alcohol as an industry has also been severely hit, because a lot of consumption does happen out of home. It happens in hotels and restaurants and bars. It happens when people are traveling. So I'm sure that's another industry that needs to keep the buzz going.
Definitely, sir. And even it was a bit shocking for personally me to like find out that Kingfisher Airlines was a surrogate for the ginger beer. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense now. So now that we have, spoken about the advertising and consumer behavior, let's talk about the work from home phenomenon. It's like no
Hmm.
one was prepared for it and suddenly it happened and now like almost everyone is geared up for it. So
Yeah,
even
yeah.
the technological giants like Twitter recently said that like all its employees are free to work from home forever if they want to. So what do you think, like what kind of
Yes.
changes will this bring to the work culture, or do you think that remote working will become the new normal?
So you know what? It's like it's interesting. It's like don't ask for something if you don't really, really, truly want it. I think everybody who's been involved in the workforce has always, felt like, oh, I wish we could like work from home. I wonder why doesn't my company allow an occasional work for home? And I think perhaps the collective energies of all those people across the world came together, and work from home became a reality that now we just can't shake away from ourselves. Personally, if you ask me, I think there are merits that work from home present. I think the most interesting thing about a work from home situation for a company is that they don't need to be limited by the kind of talent that they hire. They can actually technically recruit from anywhere. They don't need to be limited by people who might be from another country or from a small town. Logistically, a lot of time people have to think about relocation as a reality when they think about their dream roles and their jobs, and perhaps that is going to become a thing of the past. The other interesting thing is that there are a lot of people who sometimes, because of their life stage, they need to take a step back from traditional ways of working. This could be new mothers, this could be single parents, it could be people who are taking care of aging or ailing parents. So there could be people because of certain life stages who have to consciously take a break from work, or who have to compromise on their involvement with a working environment. And perhaps a work from home situation enables them not having to choose between the reality of their homes and the demands of their work. But having said that, I'd like to also look at both sides of the coin. The reality is that nothing honestly can replace face-to-face, real, warm, in-depth conversation that you can have with your colleagues, with your consumers, with your shareholders, with your varied stakeholders in an organization, with your extended brand teams. There is still a reason why sometimes work can happen a faster collaboration and persuasion, showcasing empathy for people, getting them to work with you on a project. Some of these things I feel can happen better in person. That is one. And I think also one has to realize that we have traditionally always created sort of these very clearly demarcated zones of work and life, and life has been outside work. And that has perhaps enabled people to navigate their days. Not just people, but also organizations have planned to navigate their days accordingly. Now, what has happened is, because there is a fluidity, and the two worlds of home and work have kind of collided. There are no more boundaries, and this has also definitely led to people working more, people not knowing when to stop, people putting it longer hours, and people also expecting to be always available for work. And that can possibly become fairly toxic in the years to come. And that's one of the reasons why I think perhaps we need to find a balance between work from home and work from your workplaces.
So you rightly mentioned the toll that it might take, like people not realizing of the duration of work that they are putting in. So, what do you think? How is this work from home culture or virtual learning going to interfere with our personal lives? And if you could list down some of the problems that could arise because of it.
Well, I think it's obvious that for a lot of people in the corporate environment, if they really need to make a choice between a work demand and a home demand, sometimes they will tend to make the choice and choose work demand, because that seems more immediate. There seems to be a fairly strong pressure when it comes to it, and you often do tend to take your home and your family and your loved ones for granted. So I feel like because both aspects of your life are going to be vying for attention, and sometimes for the same time you will end up neglecting things that are outside of your work. You will end up neglecting your family, your home, and your relationships. And I'm sure it's happening. And I think that for me is one of the biggest fallouts of this, that because you were forced to draw the line somewhere, you would focus on things that were also important. But now I feel like somewhere people will compromise on those things. That's, I think, one. The second thing I think is that it's very important for people also to be able to take out time for their own selves, to focus on their own journeys, focus on their own passions, to focus on their own growth as individuals. And I think perhaps that also may end up taking a backseat, given the fact that people are also not taking as many holidays as they would earlier. The concept of how and when people are going to be taking a vacation again. something that was really important for people to absolutely disconnect for a while and then come back rejuvenated to work.
Yeah, like, so there are a lot of factors that will be affected. Apart from that, since we are students and we are also concerned about how virtual learning or online education is going to shape up in the future. So how do you think all of this is going to get affected, or how do you plan to navigate through it?
Well, I honestly, I'll be lying if I would say that there aren't challenges on both sides. I think there are challenges for us. There are challenges for you. Getting students excited, getting students engaged, involved, and actively participate in classes is something that, at least for me, is a very strong aspect of teaching. And that becomes an even harder challenge, I feel, when you're trying to communicate with the students behind a laptop and not physically. So I think that is definitely a challenge. And also, I think for students, the challenge is also going to be about trying to find that undivided attention, and trying to unitask, which is really something that all of us find so difficult in today's day and age. It's going to be so much more easier to multitask when you are not as accountable as you were when you were in a physical class. And so I think it is going to be a challenge to unitask. It's going to be a challenge to focus on what is being said. But having said that, I feel like there are a couple of advantages that this also presents. I think one, students will gradually realize this, but one, it possibly does also create a certain division of time in the day and give students a certain sense of time that needs to be devoted while they prepare for a certain class, while they pre-work for a class or they prepare for a discussion. So personally, I feel like over a period of time, students, and specifically if they have an interest or a passion for a particular subject, they will be, by their own sides, from their own selves, putting in more effort to preparing for classes, putting in more effort to the pre and the post of classes, and hopefully also getting time to develop themselves outside of the classes. The second interesting thing is that, a lot of times it's great for students to get different perspectives, and sometimes those perspectives are not always with the teachers that they interact with on a daily basis. And I think digital learning allows them to get perspectives and to get exposure and to learn from outside voices and from experts, industry domain experts, who otherwise they may not have been able to interact with, purely from a logistical perspective. Now these experts, these different varied interesting voices, can reach out to you far more easily. You just have to log in and hear them. So I think that's perhaps a greater opportunity.
Now, since the outbreak, we're all seeing brands talking about the coronavirus. And with this unlock in place, do you feel that it's finally time for the brands to move from the COVID talk? Is the audience ready to accept the brands venturing into new communication?
I think yes, it's time for perhaps brands to start thinking again about selling. But I also think it's a great time for brands to start thinking a little bit about innovation and design. It's a great time for brands to start thinking about newer, different categories, about brand and product extensions, about new flavors, new formats, new packaging. I think this is a great opportunity for brands to energize their brands with new news. There has been a fair bit of fatigue that has crept into our lives, and that's not just because of the lockdown, but because also there has been a sense of sameness in the kind of things we've been doing. There is a mundanity in our routines, and also in the way we've been interacting with some of our favorite brands. And while, of course, we have loved the familiarity, we have loved the comfort, we have loved the nostalgia, but I think the time is right for brands to now inject some newness, some excitement. It's a great time for them to shake things up. And it's a great time for them to perhaps leverage the larger cultural context and venture into allied categories, venture into doing different things. So, yeah.
Was such an insightful talk about advertising and culture. And I hope that you've inspired and given enlightened a lot of students and every listener who was listening to our podcast. Now we are going to move on to a fun segment where we are going to have rapid fire round. So, sir, are you ready for it?
Yes.
What is your favorite advertisement since the lockdown period had started?
I think maybe it's a recency effect, but I think I'm going to choose the Karan Johar Godrej hair dye example that we discussed. I thought that was done quite well.
Great. Creating advertisement or teaching culture? Which is your pick?
I'll have to go with the latter, teaching culture.
Wonderful. Two things that everyone is taking very seriously at the moment, but they shouldn't be too much bothered about it.
Okay, I think people are taking their hygiene very, very seriously. I don't think they shouldn't be bothered about it, but I think there is a certain sense of paranoia that has crept in, and people are continuously disinfecting everything all the time. It's become like a national pastime. So I don't think people should be doing that as much as they are right now. That's one. And the second thing that I think people should not be doing is, well, yeah, maybe people should not be perhaps going and eating out. I think it's still perhaps more making your own meals at home and kind of focusing on in-home dining.
So, okay, sir, the next question is three things that you think will not exist 10 years from now.
Okay, so I kind of hate to say it, but I think maybe newspapers in their physical format may not exist 10 years from now. The second thing is, I think physical keys may not exist 10 years from now. So we'll probably be locking and unlocking only through our smartphones. I don't even think we'll have to wait for 10 years for that. And, there's one thing common between me and you, Piyush, and that is our glasses. And somehow I feel that perhaps there will not be the need for spectacles 10 years from now. So, yes.
Okay, the next question is three things whose existence you could not have imagined 10 years back from now.
Okay. Three things that I would have not imagined 10 years back. Okay, so the first is influencers. I wouldn't have imagined beauty influencers, fashion influencers, micro influencers. I wouldn't have imagined influencers and it becoming like a legit job and a full time industry. I wouldn't have imagined this 10 years from now. So that is one. Yeah, the second thing is, I wouldn't have imagined the sharing economy to have taken off the way it did 10 years from now. So it's ironical that now it's again kind of in doldrums. But the fact that, a year or so back, you could share anything and everything from, of course, a cab to your furniture to workspace to broadband, whatever you wanted. And so I think that is something that I never imagined 10 years from now. Yes, and the third thing that I couldn't imagine 10 years from now would perhaps be, yeah, I think some of the, I don't know, maybe androgynous fashion. I wouldn't have imagined that 10 years ago. I wouldn't have. I felt that we had fairly stronger notions of gender and identity 10 years back, but I feel like we become fairly relaxed and fairly fluid on that front. And even in India, I feel like now people are slightly more comfortable pushing the boundaries when it comes to fashion and attire and what they wear.
Great,
Okay,
sir.
so 10 years ago, did you imagine that you would be recording a podcast remotely?
No, not at all. Not in my wildest dreams. I know this conversation would be happening, and it would. I never imagined it would be happening in this fashion for sure.
Lovely, sir.
Sure.
So, sir, a commercial that convinced you not to buy the product that they were pushing for.
Yeah, I would say, if you were to really ask me, there's one category of advertising that really doesn't do it for me, and that has never really convinced me to make a purchase. I would say it's automobile advertising. So I feel like most car advertising is so formulaic and has managed to somehow get caught in a certain cliche, and it's always about really romancing the product and really close interior exterior shots and then this long drive that the car goes for, and very very functional. So if you were to ask me, any of the big brands, any of the, especially the luxury car advertising brands, they just don't do it.
The cultural shift that is getting more attention than it deserves.
Okay, the cultural shift that's getting more attention than it deserves, it is men cooking at home. I think that's just classical, nod to our inherently patriarchal society. So a few men are occasionally entering the kitchen and dabbling a little bit with some cooking, and they're going about town and showcasing it like they've discovered the next mobile phone. So I think this is something that is really, if you ask me, fairly blasphemous. The sad reality of our lives is that our gender roles are still fairly well defined and sadly still very, very insular, not as fluid as our sense of fashion that I mentioned. And women are still responsible for doing most of the work at home, including cooking. And, men just feel a little entitled and they feel that, okay, chalo, we've done a little bit. And so it's time for us to also say that we've, and it's become this major thing of, showcasing what I've made. So I'd say that this is a cultural shift that's not yet happened. So let's wait for it to happen first.
And what, according to you, is the next big thing that you're expecting to happen? It can be anything.
So personally, I think the next big thing that's going to happen and that's going to have an impact on brands and businesses is really a reimagination of the home, and that's going to have varied implications. I think that people have already started feeling a renewed sense of appreciation for their home, for their corners, for everything that it brings to them, for the safety of the cocoon of their homes. And I think people are going to continue to re-engage with their homes, and the home actually is going to be a construct that is not going to be defined just by its physical walls and its identity, but it is also going to be an emotional construct. It is also going to be a place that is going to allow you to connect with your loved ones, for you to re-energize your relationships. And it's also going to be a place, increasingly, where you will be able to connect with your own self. So I think a lot of times people would take these journeys for self exploration. People would travel to discover themselves. I think now that that travel is going to be within your home.
Now, the couple of next questions will be based on a place we call a second home. So, the first question on that is, which is your favorite Michael spot?
Okay, it would have to be Chota, though I know this is an answer that everybody gives, but I would say, yeah, I would say Chota for sure.
I think we have the answer
So
for
the
the
next
next
question
question
is
as well.
going to be a
It's
tricky one, but you have to rethink for it. So the next question was mess or chota.
I don't have to think about that answer at all, because if I have to choose between mess and chota, I would always choose the mess. Because for me, the reason I chose chota as my favorite spot the reason I chose Chota as my favorite spot in on the campus is, not got very little to do with what I eat there. It's just the atmosphere, the energy, the vibe of the place. It's a connection. It's a connecting ground. It's a ground for ideas and inspiration. But honestly, if I have to make a food related decision, the mess trumps the Chota any day for me. I'm a diehard mess fan,
That's so
and
relieving.
yeah, for me, if I had a choice, I'd do all my meals in the mess. I'm the one who drags my colleagues, who drags my students to the mess, even for that 5 p.m. snack.
So thank you so much, sir. That was the end of our rapid fire segment, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation in general. It was really fun talking to you like this on virtual platform. I hope you enjoyed the podcast session, though.
Yes, I did. I think it was great fun. I hope the answers were useful, and I hope you got something that will be useful for the students. And
Yeah, definitely, sir. Everything that you shared with us was really valuable for all of us. So, yeah, we hope you enjoyed it too. So, guys, that was it from our side. You can follow MyCast, the Mycon podcast on Instagram, and you can stream us on JioSavan, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts as well. So, keep sharing, and yes, stay safe. Thank you.